Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Mark, we shift our attention over to Braves baseball. They had a series against the St. Louis Cardinals, and they had that weird series where all that rain came through and they had to go those back-to-back 7-inning games. They have another situation like that right now in New York where they played the Mets and got Game 1 in already. We'll have some highlights of both Game 2 of the Cardinals game and Game 1 of today's game. What do you make up so far of this squad? Still sitting a little below 500 and not first place there in their division.
Well, they come in third place, 3 games under 500, where they've kind of been for the last, month and a half. And you expect them to take the next step. A big blow was to them, obviously, was Ozuna going down.
Right.
And we'll find out a little bit more of that later as why their outfield production is really a big reason why they're not being more consistent offensively.
Right.
Now, they're putting up good numbers offensively, but when you have that kind of hole in
A panda.
you don't know what you're going to see anymore in Major League Baseball.
In these dugouts.
I saw the Padres doing a dance where they're
Yeah, I saw
whirling
that same one
around.
too. Yep.
I mean, this has become. I guess it's fun for the players, and I'm sure people get a kick out of it. But with the Braves, Acuna's doing his job like he's done all year. Albies has really come on, started to hit. I think Freddie Freeman batting second now in the lineup is really helping. Austin Riley has found his niche, and Dansby Swanson is a guy that's driving in runs and maybe not hitting for the highest average, but getting clutch hits.
Right.
So in their first 2 games of the week when they played Boston again is a major run scorer, and they just bullied Atlanta's pitching staff.
Right.
When you had Tucker Davidson, who had pitched very well his first couple starts, and then Ian Anderson, who's been one of the better younger starters in Major League Baseball this year, getting slapped around, you saw what their kind of weakness can be if they don't get good starting pitching.
Right.
And then they were able to rally, get back into the game with their offense and their bullpen collapsing late. And the worst of the Braves was seen in those 2 games. Then you go to the weekend series against St. Louis, and you see the best of the Braves pitching staff, which in 3 of the games they had 2 shutouts. They allowed 1 run in the other game, and then they allowed 9 in the only game they lost. But if you look at that graphic for just the pitching difference overall between the series against Boston and the series against the Cardinals, the numbers will really jump out at you. You saw, obviously, they lost the 2 games to Boston, and they won 3 of the 4 games against the Cardinals. The innings pitched, since there was only 2 games against Boston and 4 games against St. Louis, the numbers are a little different as far as innings pitched. But what really stands out to me, and I'll just explain it if we can't show it, but the innings pitched, when there's 18 innings in the 2 games, here you go, 18 innings in the 2 games against Boston, 32 innings in the 4 games against St. Louis. They allowed only 2 home runs in the 4 games against St. Louis compared to 5 in the 2 against Boston, where it just seemed like balls flying all out of the ballpark. Allowed 10 runs per game, so the ERA was 10 against Boston. Hits per 9, 14 hits per 9 innings against St. Louis. It was only 5.6. As their starters did much better, their bullpen did much better. And overall, a 2.81 ERA, which is much more Brave-like with Charlie Morton and those guys going out and pitching well. That's what they're going to consistently need to advance in the National League and get back to where they were last year, which was the National League Championship Series. If you don't get back to at least the playoffs and win a round, this is a huge disappointment for Atlanta.
There's a lot of people talking about 100 wins earlier in the season, 90 at least, 80 at least, and the benchmark can't be making the playoffs when last year
you have the NLCS.
Exactly, and with a young squad.
And you're 1 game from making the World Series, even in a broken season.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure how many people would say, oh, this was a big season for me. I'm going to remember it forever, when there were so many stipulations that went in. They didn't even play any home games. They were in, Texas for the World Series or whatever.
Yep.
So I think it would mean, obviously, more. You see how into it the people are going to the games. They can't wait for this. They've waited so long to get back into normal life. So the Braves were able to provide a lot of that normalcy. And the way that their offense is playing, it's an exciting brand of baseball. When you can come back against Boston like they did those first 2 games, it gives you an anticipation to where we are not out of any game. But when your bullpen isn't able to pick up the slack and then nail that down, it can be a little deflating, because then you're thinking, okay, what's going to happen? Even if we come back, we're still going to have to score more runs, and we can't really count on these guys to get consistent outs. So I think over the course of the season, as we talked about a bunch of times, Another key, again, is the starters going longer so there can be less stress on the bullpen. Because it just seems like every game, these guys are going into the bullpen in a 5th, 6th inning, and that's hard to continue over a long period of time. Even this weekend when we had the doubleheader, even though 7 innings, which I still really don't like, I think it helps if your starters can go that full 7,
right.
So that way you can just not use the bullpen that game, which I think is mandatory if you're playing 7-inning games. My goal as a manager would be no bullpen. Let's just put one of our best starters out there, even if we have to start 2 really good starters, just to get that done. When you look at the offensive side of this weekend against St. Louis, the top 3, which has been doing it all year, like we had said, in Acuna, Freddie Freeman batting second, and Ozzie Albies. You look at Albies, one of the RBI leaders for the month of June. Acuna is one of the run scorers for the month of June, and Freeman's just been, the MVP last year, a solid hitter overall. And like I had said, I was wrong about him in the number 2 spot. I really do like him there. And Albies is really growing as a hitter in the number 3 spot. He's hitting for a lot more power, a lot more doubles, a lot more home runs, extra base hits. He's turning on that inside pitch more than he did before. And he feels like maybe in the number 3 spot, sometimes if you put a guy in a specific spot of the batting order, they get in their head, they have to be a different type of batter.
Right.
So as a number 3 batter, you got to be more of an offensive threat. You got to look to hit the long ball and look to hit the ball deeper than you do as a number 2 batter. So I think that's good with Albies. You can see in that series, 12 hits, 11 runs, 7 RBIs between the 3 of them. But one of the weaknesses for Atlanta that they really have to address as the season goes on, and there are a couple of ways they can do this, is in center and left field.
That's right.
They have, looking at the overall numbers, this is in the National League, okay? For left field, as a position overall, 656 OPS is the worst amongst left fielders in the National League. And that's with Ozuna playing the number of games he played this year.
Exactly.
Their batting average through 12 is second to last. Their hits, 54, second to last. And at center field, their OPS again is last. So if you have 2 positions in the outfield where your OPS is among the worst, when you rely on the outfield for guys to drive in runs, that's not very good. Hits again, 52, which is second to last. And total bases, 85, which is second to last. So my idea would be, if you want to do an immediate stopgap to get production right away, Duvall on the Marlins would be a great guy to put out there. Again, he's a familiar guy who knows the Braves, and he's killed the Braves this year. Ask Max Fried how he feels about Duvall. And then another guy is Kyle Schwarber for the Nationals. A left-handed bat that's had 9 homers, 19 RBIs in the month of June would be another great answer to put out there for just an immediate stopgap. If you don't want to go to Drew Waters yet, if you think Pache doesn't have enough at-bats in the minor leagues this year because he really struggled early on, and maybe the chance he got last year in the postseason wasn't as good an indicator as he's going to have going forward. Sometimes you have guys come up and they'll have that initial postseason where they do great. 2 instances, I remember Greg Jeffries in 1988 for the Mets did awesome in the postseason. I believe he hit over 400. Everyone thought he was going to be National League Rookie of the Year. And in '89, he fell flat on his face.
Exactly.
So,
and even taken to a different sport, Tyler Hero for the Miami Heat last year in the bubble did the exact same thing. Had a great playoff. Everybody thought he was going to bust on the scene this year and had a shaky year last year. So that indicator in the postseason not always the best as you project it forward.
Timo Perez, another guy in the 2000 playoffs, came alive. He was unbelievable in the, I think, NLCS, he won the MVP. Then in a World Series against the Yankees, they decided, okay, we're going to figure out how to pitch this guy. And you never heard from Timo Perez again. So I think that can be misleading if you have a good breakout, then people all of a sudden expect it. But Pache is a good prospect. He was expected to be one of the better prospects coming out of the Braves organization. And if you fail that second time coming around, you go back to the minors, kind of get your head together. So I'm anticipating when he comes back, he'll be a lot more mature and understand his role a lot better. When it comes to you that easy the first time, maybe you don't prepare as much, maybe you don't spend as much time in the batting cage. I don't know any of those things. I'm not saying they're true, but perhaps that can be the case, and you really learn how to be a professional when you come back up.
Exactly. Interesting stuff there, and the Braves, as of right now, have some decent spots, but as you highlighted, some spots they really can work on over the next few weeks as they try to get themselves back atop the division race. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we will have a Monday edition of our Who's Better segment. A former Brave great against a guy who played in the game for a very long time for a lot of teams. We'll compare two stars coming up next.